Have you ever sat in a silent room watching the second hand of a clock tick by? Tick, tick, tick. When you were in pain, or when you were waiting for something terrible to happen, a single minute can feel like an hour. A day can feel like a year. Now imagine a span of time that the human mind simply cannot comprehend. Not a century, not a millennium, but a stretch of existence so vast that the history of our entire universe would seem like a blink of an eye in comparison. Have you ever wondered what happens to the human soul when the concept of time itself becomes a weapon of torture? What if you were alive during a time when the sun has long since died, the stars have faded, and the only reality left is the blazing, unyielding truth of the afterlife? Today, we are journeying into the most terrifying and mysterious aspect of existence. We are looking beyond the veil of death to answer a question that haunts the deepest corners of the human subconscious. After 5,000 crore years in hell, how will humans be punished? What is the state of a mind that has endured eons of regret? Welcome to Divine Sagas, where we peel back the layers of history and theology to reveal the stories that shape our souls. This is not just a story about fire and brimstone. It is a story about the psychology of eternity, the crushing weight of regret, and the ultimate reality of divine justice. To understand the punishment of the future, we must first understand the deception of the present. Right now, as you listen to this, you are surrounded by the comfort of time. You believe you have tomorrow. You believe that 50 or 60 years on this earth is a long time. But the Quran and the authentic traditions of Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him, describe a day, just the day of judgment alone, as being 50,000 years long. That is just the waiting period. That is just the trial. Once the verdict is passed and the inhabitants of the fire are cast into their new, terrifying home, the true counter of eternity begins. Imagine the heavy gates of Jahannam slamming shut behind a soul. The sound is not just a physical thud, it is a psychological finality. It is the sound of hope being severed. In those first few moments, which might feel like centuries to us, the soul is in a state of shock. The punishment is physical, yes. The skin burns as described in the Quran, only to be replaced with fresh skin so that the pain can be tasted anew. This is a cycle of biological regeneration designed for suffering. But let us fast forward. Let us move past the first 1,000 years, past the first 1,000,000 years. Let us journey to a point where the soul has dwelled in this abyss for what feels like 5,000 crore years. By this time, the physical pain, while excruciating, has been joined by something far worse, the torture of memory. After such an unfathomable amount of time, you might think the human mind would break or go numb, but the design of hell is such that the mind is kept strictly, terrifyingly alert. The inhabitants do not die. La yamutu fiha wa la yahya. They neither die nor truly live. They exist in a suspended state of maximum awareness. After billions of years, the most agonizing punishment is not the heat, but the clarity of hindsight. Imagine remembering a specific afternoon on Earth. You remember the call to prayer you ignored. You remember the charity you withheld. You remember the arrogance you displayed when someone tried to warn you about the end times and the signs of Qiyamah. In this deep expanse of time, the soul begins to have conversations with itself that last for eons. Why, it screams into the darkness, why did I trade an eternity of bliss for 60 years of distraction? The Quran gives us a chilling window into this psychology. The people of hell will call out to the keepers of the fire. They will plead with Malik, the guardian of hell. They will not ask to go to paradise anymore. Their aspirations have been crushed. After billions of years, their only wish is for cessation. They will cry out, "O Malik,
Let your Lord put an end to us. They just want to cease to exist. They want the blackness of non-existence. But the answer, after a silence that might last for ages, comes back with crushing weight. Verily, you are to remain. This is where the story of the human condition becomes most tragic. In the depths of this despair, the soul tries to find logic, just as it did on earth. It tries to blame others. The Quran tells us of the arguments that break out in the fire. The weak will say to the arrogant leaders they followed on earth, "We were your followers. Can you now deflect from us some part of the fire?" The leaders, who were once proud and mighty like the pharaohs of old, will hang their heads in disgrace. They will say, "If Allah had guided us, we would have guided you. It is all the same for us now, whether we rage or bear it with patience. There is no place of escape." Think about the irony here. On earth, we are obsessed with connection, with social status, with following influencers and leaders. But after 5,000 crore years, those connections become a source of intense hatred. The friends who encouraged you to sin, the systems that told you religion was a fairy tale, they're all there, and the sight of them is a punishment in itself. The psychological torment of betrayal is infinite. You realize that the freedom you sought on earth actually was a cage that led you here. As the timeline stretches further, the punishments evolve to target the senses that were misused on earth. The eyes that looked at the forbidden are now blinded by the gloom of the fire, or terrified by the sight of the Zakum tree, a tree that springs out of the bottom of hellfire, its fruits looking like the heads of devils. The ears that refused to listen to the truth, that mocked the verses of the Quran, are now filled with the screaming of the damned and the roaring of the fire itself. The Quran describes the fire as furious. It almost bursts with rage. It is a living, breathing entity of justice. But in this darkest of descriptions, there is a profound mystery that affects human life in this state. It is the memory of the prophets. After eons of suffering, the stories of the past become the greatest source of regret. The soul remembers Prophet Musa. It remembers how Musa faced the tyrant Pharaoh. Pharaoh had everything: wealth, power, an army, and the arrogance to call himself a god. He thought his kingdom would last forever. But where is Pharaoh now? In this narrative of eternity, the soul sees the reality of Pharaoh. He is leading his people not to victory, but to the watering place of fire. The lesson that was missed on earth becomes clear-cut in hell. Arrogance against the divine is the ultimate suicide. Would you recognize the truth when deception looks real? This is the question the soul asks itself repeatedly. On earth, the deception looked so real. The material world seemed solid, and the spiritual world seemed abstract. But after 5,000 crore years, the tables have turned completely. The spiritual world is the only solid reality, and the earthly life feels like a fleeting hallucinatory dream. The regret is so palpable that the Quran says the wrongdoer will bite on his hands in sorrow, saying, "Oh, I wish I had taken a path with the messenger." As we navigate this timeline of punishment, we must address the concept of spiritual thirst. In this world, when you are thirsty, you drink water and the pain goes away. In the afterlife, the biology of punishment changes. The inhabitants ask for water, they beg for it, and they are given water. But it is hamim, boiling water that scalds their faces and severs their insides. Why? Why such severity? It is a reflection of the toxicity they willingly ingested on earth. They drank the poison of disbelief, of hatred, of corruption. Now the physical manifestation of that poison is their only sustenance. Yet, even in this darkest of descriptions, there is a nuance that we must understand to grasp the full picture of Divine Sagas. The punishment is not arbitrary. It is a mirror. Every flame, every chain, every moment of despair corresponds to a choice made freely. The man who destroyed families to build his empire experiences the destruction of his own peace. The woman who used her words to slander and destroy reputations experiences the burning of her own tongue. It is a perfectly calibrated system of justice where the punishment fits the crime with mathematical precision. But what happens to the concept of hope after such a duration? Is hope dead? For the disbelievers who rejected the truth entirely, who mocked the Creator and oppressed His creation without an ounce of remorse, the door is closed. This is the hardest reality to accept. The concept of Khalidina fiha abada, abiding therein forever. The mind cannot truly grasp forever. We think in terms of sentences.
However, the mystery of hell has another layer. There are those who entered the fire not because they rejected the Creator, but because their sins outweighed their good deeds. They carried the seed of Iman, the seed of faith, but they allowed it to be buried under mountains of negligence. What happens to them after eons of purification? This is where the story shifts from pure terror to a trembling hope. Imagine a soul that has been blackened by the fire. It has served its time. It has been purified of the arrogance and the filth of sin through the most painful process imaginable. Is there a way out? The Hadith literature gives us a glimpse into a scene that is both terrifying and beautiful. There comes a time when the intercession is granted. The prophets intercede, the righteous intercede, and finally, the most merciful of those who show mercy decides that the time for punishment has ended for those who held even a mustard seed of faith in their hearts. This transition from the depths of Jahannam to the outskirts of paradise is a narrative of profound transformation. But how does it happen? And what does a human being look like after 5,000 crore years of punishment? They are described as charcoal, burnt, unrecognizable. They are brought to a river called the River of Life, Nahr al-Hayat. When they are dipped into this water, they sprout and regenerate just as a seed grows in the silt of a flood. They are remade, they are restored. But before we reach that point of redemption, we must linger a little longer on the danger, because you, the listener, are not there yet. You are here. You are in the realm of opportunity. The reason we tell this story, the reason we explore the what if of 5,000 crore years is not to paralyze you with fear, but to wake you up with reality. Let us return to the darkness for a moment to understand the conversations that happen across the barriers of reality. The Quran describes a scene that is haunting in its clarity. The inhabitants of the fire will call out to the inhabitants of paradise. Imagine this communication across the celestial divide. After billions of years of suffering, the people of hell see the people of paradise enjoying the provision of their Lord. They cry out, "Pour upon us some water, or from whatever Allah has provided you." The request is so simple, just water, just a scrap of relief. But the people of paradise reply, "Indeed, Allah has forbidden them both to the disbelievers." Why? Because on earth, when the guidance came, when the water of wisdom was offered freely, they poured it into the dirt. They mocked the believers. They said, "You are backward, you are living in the past." Now the roles are reversed. This is the ultimate fulfillment of the warning. The suspense of the afterlife is not about what will happen. It has already been written. It is about who will be on which side of the barrier. Consider the psychological state of a person who realizes that their suffering is self-inflicted. This is the mystery that affects human life in the hereafter. It is the mystery of regret. Scientists today tell us that regret is one of the most powerful negative emotions. It activates the pain centers of the brain. Now, multiply that by infinity. The person remembers the specific moments of end-time signs they saw. They remember seeing the widespread dishonesty, the breaking of family ties, the prevalence of interest and usury, signs that the Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him, warned us about 1400 years ago. They remember living through those times and thinking, "I have time." They thought 50 years was a long time,
but facing 5,000 crore years, they realized that their life on Earth was less than a split second. But let us shift the camera. Let us look at the story of the very last man to leave hell. This story is recorded in Sahih al-Bukhari and Muslim, and it is perhaps the most hope-inducing story in Islamic eschatology. It gives us a sense of scale. This man has crawled out of hell. He has faced the punishment for ages. He is burned, exhausted, and traumatized. He turns his face away from the fire and says, "Blessed is he who has saved me from thee. Verily, Allah has given me what he has not given to anyone of the first and the last." He thinks he is the luckiest being in existence just because he is no longer burning. He doesn't even dream of a palace. He just wants the shade of a tree. He sees a tree in the distance and begs Allah to bring him close to it. Allah asks him, "If I give you this, will you ask for anything else?" The man swears he won't, but then he sees a better tree and then another closer to the gates of paradise. Each time his desire grows. Each time the mercy of Allah accommodates him. Finally, he hears the voices of the people of paradise, the joy, the peace, the serenity. He asks to enter, but he enters with the mindset of someone who has known only loss. He thinks paradise is full. He thinks there is no room for a wretch like him. Allah tells him to wish. He wishes for everything he can imagine. And then Allah says to him, "You shall have this and 10 times the like thereof." This man, the last one out of hell, receives 10 times the size of this world. Can you imagine? This is the lowest rank of paradise. If this is the mercy shown to the last person to leave the punishment after eons of purification, what is prepared for those who strive for righteousness now? What is prepared for those who protect their iman in a world that tries to strip it away? This contrast is essential. The fear of hell is meant to drive us toward the sanctuary of mercy. It is like a warning sign on a highway that says "bridge out ahead." The sign is scary, yes, but it is there to save your life. If you ignore the sign because you don't like negative vibes, you fall into the abyss. If you respect the sign and turn the steering wheel, you arrive home safely. We are living in times that feel like the final chapters of history. We see courage and faith being tested in ways similar to how Prophet Musa faced his trials. We see the separation of truth and falsehood becoming sharper. The stories of the Quran are not fairy tales, they are roadmaps for survival. When you hear about the punishment of 5,000 crore years, do not let it drive you to despair, let it drive you to action. Ask yourself today, if my life ended right now, where would I wake up? Would I wake up in the embrace of mercy or in the grip of regret? The fire of hell is deep and its bottom is far, but the prayer mat in your room is just a few steps away. The forgiveness of Allah is vast, deeper than any ocean, and it is available right now. You do not have to be the protagonist in a tragedy. You can be the hero who recognized the danger and sought the refuge of the King of Kings. The mystery of the afterlife is solved by the choices of this life. The 5,000 crore years will pass, but how they pass depends on you. Will they be years of agony, or will they be years where you are safe, protected by the shade of the throne, wondering how you ever feared anything else but Allah? This life is the short exam. The next life is the permanent result. Do not fail the exam because you were too busy staring out the window. The bell is about to ring, the time is ticking, and your soul is too precious to be lost to the fire. Thank you for journeying with us through this reflection on the ultimate reality. We hope this story has awakened a new sense of purpose in your heart. This is Divine Sagas, reminding you that every saga has an ending, but your story with your Creator is eternal. Make it a beautiful one. Until next time, may you be among those who are safe, secure, and guided. Peace be upon you.